Welcome to part 2 of my Faster PC series. This is part 2A for Windows 7, part 2B for Windows 10 is forthcoming. Okay, your new best friend is Task Manager. Fire it up with Control-Shift-Escape, or you can also right click on your taskbar like so. Expand it out so you can see everything, or most stuff anyway. Make sure show processes from all users is checked. So what's Task Manager good for? It's good for showing where your resources are going. Who's using up all the CPU? Who's using up all the memory? Oh, Task Manager shows you right here. Notice you can click each column heading and sort. Always like to add another column, CPU time. Just go to View, select column CPU time. CPU time shows the total processor time, so not just what's happening right now, but what's each task been up to. So for example, sorting by CPU time, I can see K-Meleon, even though currently it shows 0% CPU, has been busier since it started than DWM, the desktop Windows Manager, even though the DWM is currently using more CPU. So K-Meleon's one to keep an eye on. So beyond Task Manager, there's another tool available in the sysinternal suite. Link will be in the description. The tool is called Process Explorer, and it's way more advanced than Task Manager. Please be aware I use the words task and process interchangeably in this video. So right off the bat, you'll see some similarities to Task Manager. You have CPU time, CPU, memories broken into a little more color. And then you have color coding for each task, which I'm not going to get into right now, but those can be helpful. And also helpful, you can break the process view into this tree view, which will show parent-child relationships amongst the different processes. So in this way you can see if a process has a parent or was launched by another process. For example, here you can see the interrupts process was launched by the system process. So another great thing about Process Explorer is this ability to verify images. So let's say you have something running, you don't know what it is, you can go in here and click verify, and it'll tell you if it's been verified or the digital signature has been verified in Microsoft's library. That doesn't mean that all processes have to be verifiable, but as a good first line of defense, it's pretty easy to do. Another cool thing, Process Explorer is connected to VirusTotal, which allows you to submit hashes of the images that are running as a process on your computer, and VirusTotal will tell you what's the risk, what's the expected risk that the image contains a virus. So like 0 out of 57 would be no perceived risk at all. And this can be really convenient if you have some suspicious process, as opposed to going online doing it manually. Just do it right there from Process Explorer. Okay, so that's fine and good, but so how do I make my computer faster? And the answer to that is the number one most important thing you need to do is limit what's running. And most of the stuff that's running on your computer has probably been running since startup, so you need to limit what runs at startup. How do you limit what runs at startup? The easiest way is to run msconfig. So you go start, search msconfig, run that. So in this tool, we'll be looking at the two tabs, services and startup. So the key to this is knowing there's a lot of junk that's installed whenever you install software. There's update services, there's monitoring services, and a lot of it you just really don't need. A good example would be when you install NVIDIA device drivers. If you use the Express install, you'll get things like this GeForce Experience. You don't need that. It's just an all-encompassing tool that integrates with other stuff that they offer. Turn it off. You can always run it later if you want. I recommend only change one thing at a time. Hit apply, OK, and then reboot and see if the changes are OK, and don't turn too many knobs at one time. In this case, I'll exit without restart so I can show a few more things here. So how do you know what's important from what's not important, right? Well, you got to do some searching. You can Google any other, whatever kind of search you like, put double quotes around your startup item and go item by item, anything you think that's a candidate. And here again, you just want to uncheck one item at a time, reboot, make sure your computer comes up stable, runs good for a while, then go back into msconfig, move on to the next item. Okay, so now let's talk about the Services tab. The Services tab is basically the same layout as the Startup tab. It's just for services, which are programs that are managed by Windows. I would check the Hide All Microsoft Services checkbox. That makes the view a little less cluttered and easier to see what's going on. Of course, stopping Microsoft services is another option. It's a little out of the scope of this video though. So sometimes you'll see the same, looks like the same program in both startup and services. It's usually you're safe to check both. It's amazing how much stuff. Look at all this stuff that I've unchecked here. I mean, it's unbelievable. My computer would never start up if all this stuff was checked. Yeah, it's phenomenal. I mean, you'll be amazed at how much performance gain increase you'll have just by unchecking 4 or 5 of these. And we're not just talking CPU memory improvements, it's also network. These things are constantly calling home over the network, and that's your bandwidth. You're paying for that. Turn them off. Okay, now besides msconfig, you also need to run task scheduler. So run it like so. Start run task scheduler. So we'll be looking right here at the root of the tree task scheduler library. In here you'll find some more stuff you can disable. Look at these: Adobe Acrobat Updater, Google Updater, something called Overwolf, which comes with Logitech stuff now. Turn this stuff off. Don't need it. You can look at the last runtime and see they're running pretty regular. Just right click and disable. If you see something you don't know what it is, you can just click it, go to the Actions tab below and see what it's firing up, find out more about it. Lastly, I'll mention there's another tool called Autoruns as part of the sysinternal suite. I'm not going to get into that tool here, but it'll give you even more control over what's automatically fired up when you boot up your computer. I'll put a link to that in the description below. Okay, if you find stuff that's starting up and you know you don't want it, a good thing to do is remove it completely from your computer. Go to Start, Add, RE, Add or Remove Programs. I like to sort it by the installed on date. To me, that makes more sense in my mind for finding stuff. You start with the most recent stuff that you've installed and just go down the list looking for things you know you don't want anymore. And when you find something, you want to just right click on it and select uninstall. Usually you can select uninstall. Okay. For example, in my last job, I got sucked into installing GoToMeeting, something I never use anymore. I know I don't want it anymore, so it's gone. Sometimes when you right click, you won't get an uninstall. You'll get this change option. That's fine. You can just click change and then you'll be able to uninstall from there usually. Click remove in this case, and then next, and then remove. Okay, every now and then it's a good idea to run a disk cleanup to recapture lost disk drive space. The one built into Windows is fine. Head to Start, Search, Disk, and Disk Cleanup. It's going to start out doing an analysis, tell it which hard drive, usually just select the one you have Windows installed on. Okay, that was a time lapse of about 10 minutes it took to run on my system. So it came up with 27.2 gigabytes it can recover. I usually just leave it on the default options. Make sure you're ready to empty the recycle bin if you do that. Otherwise, you can explore the tool more on your own. There's obviously more stuff you can check and the More Options tab to check out. When you're ready with this tool, you just click OK to proceed. Then delete files. Okay, another popular disk cleanup tool is called Ccleaner. I'll put a link to it in the description. So about 6.5 gig, he came up with more that can be recovered. I mean, I didn't have everything checked in the built-in tool. Some of that could have probably been recovered with the Windows built-in tool. Still, I think it's a pretty good tool. A little more of a deep clean. Be aware, if you install Ccleaner, they'll install a monitoring service. I recommend to disable that or just uninstall Ccleaner when you're done with the cleanup. The tool has quite a few options, as you can see here on all these checkboxes and other options. I'm not getting into any of that here. Just click Run Cleaner when you're ready, and OK, you're aware these files will be deleted. So yeah, there you go. Another 7 gig free for a net total of about 34 gig. Okay, now you've got the hard drive cleaned up. The next thing you'd want to do is manually defragment the hard drive. This only applies to spinning hard drives, not to solid state drives or SSDs. Also, you probably don't need to manually defrag if the automatic defragger is running on a regular basis. Mine's set to run, but my computer automatically goes to sleep every night, so it basically doesn't run much. So open up the defrag tool by going Start and typing disk, and you'll get disk defragmenter pop up there. Click that. So here you can see the schedule defragmentation is set to run at 1 a.m. every Wednesday. I'm pretty sure that's the default. And the last time mine ran was about 2 months ago. You can modify that schedule if you want, but I'd prefer to run it manually because I don't want it running when I'm trying to do useful stuff. But anyway, to see if you need a defragmentation, you need to run Analyze Disk first. So click Analyze Disk. So I actually sped this up a little bit. The actual time for me to run the analysis was about 3 minutes. Okay, so the analysis showed a 1% fragmentation on drive C. That's probably not enough to justify running the defragger. I would say anything over 3% or so would be when you'd want to run it. However, in order to demo the defrag process, I'll go ahead and run it now. Okay, that was sort of a time-lapse speed up of the process, which actually took just over 1 hour to complete. And then, of course, should show 0% fragmented when you're done. Okay, now it's time to talk antivirus. Okay, while Windows Defender is pretty good most of the time, I would recommend running a third-party tool like Malwarebytes Anti-Malware at least once in a while. It is free, and the link's below in the description. Okay, so in this tool, they give you an option to manually update the database. It's not clear to me if that's really needed because it seems to update when you run the scan. But unless you know otherwise, just click it anyway. Just click scan now and let it do its thing. Okay, so for me it took about 45 minutes to run. Okay, so it identified 30 threats and 29 of those are PUPs or potentially unwanted programs, and one is malware. Okay, so I'm a little suspicious of the one malware, which it says is a Trojan. So I copied the results here to the clipboard using the save results, and then I paste it into a text editor. Then I'm going to grab the path here so I can get to the file that it's claiming is a Trojan. Okay, so now I know where the file is. I'm going to head up to virustotal.com and let them have a go at it. Although I know it's just a text file and there's almost zero chance it could be a Trojan. Just to be thorough, illustrate the process here. So yeah, VirusTotal came up with 0 out of 55, probably harmless. So yeah, this is what's known as a false positive. Unfortunately, it's not all that uncommon, and it's just an issue of the database being incorrect in this case. So the proper course of action would be for me to notify Malwarebytes and let them know about it, and they can correct their database. So even though that was a false positive, I'll probably let it run since it just quarantines the file. You can always unquarantine it if you have any problems. It looks like a very simple 2-character file, text file anyway. As far as the remaining 29 threats, those are PUPs, and usually that's like adware, junkware, stuff you don't need. So not viruses per se, but good to get rid of them. So basically I'm letting it run on all 30 threads. Okay, so yeah, be aware you have to reboot for the full quarantine to take effect, and then we're done with the AV stuff. Okay, time to talk about power management. So click start and search POWER, go to change power saving settings. So there's 3 pre-configured plans. There's a balanced plan, power saver plan, and then high performance plan. The main thing is you want to make sure you're not on the power saver plan, unless you still want to focus on saving power despite all the other speed enhancements we're doing. So now within each plan, you can click on change plan settings and then change advanced power settings. And there's more stuff you can tweak in here. So one thing you can do is you can prevent the hard disk from spinning down so fast. You can increase that, and that'll increase responsiveness of the hard drive if you've stepped away and come back. And then also there's processor power management. So in here you can increase the minimum processor state, and that's moderately effective. I mean, some processors don't allow you to go to 5% of total clock speed, but that's one area you can experiment with. Obviously, making the minimum higher will use more power. Note that to see the high performance power plan, you have to click the down arrow to show additional plans, and there it is. Okay, so next let's talk about window indexing. If you don't do a lot of searching for files and whatnot on your computer, I recommend to disable the service. And if you do a lot of searching for files, leave it running and consider tweaking the settings like so. So head to Start Search, type Index, and select Indexing Options. So using the Modify and Advanced buttons, you can choose what gets indexed and if there's any exclusions and whatnot. So that's where that is. To manage the actual service, head to Start Search Services and click Services. And scroll till you get to Windows Search and double click. So in here you can manage the service, you can stop and start it, and then of course you can change the startup type to disabled or manual if you think you might want to run it sometimes. Okay, that's about it for the Windows search. Okay, so another thing we can do is optimize when the automatic antivirus runs. I only run Windows Defender automatically, so I'll show how to do that here. But it's a similar process for whatever antivirus you might run. So you want to go to your system tray and get to the little house icon, click that, and go to settings. Note this is set to run Sundays at 2 a.m. Just make sure it's not a prime time when you need to run the computer, and try to make sure your computer's on so it does run. Make sure this middle box is checked to have it wait until you're done using the computer to start the process. Make sure the last checkbox is checked to limit the CPU usage. Here I'm going to drop it from 20 to 10%, which is all it really needs. It'll get done in time. Save changes, we're done here. Okay, now let's talk about browsers. Go ahead and open your search box and type in there lightweight browser. At the very top you should find a comparison of lightweight web browser Wikipedia page. Let's go there. If you spend much time browsing the web in your web browser, you may have noticed lately web browsers have gotten very bloated. Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, they're all just massive programs, and they tend to use lots and lots of resources and many threads. The main reason for this is websites have pushed more and more functionality from the server side to the client side, and that's you. And they do this through the use of JavaScript. But anyway, and to help offset all this bloat, I would strongly recommend considering an alternate browser. You probably saw I'm using K-Meleon a lot, or Ccleaner, however you say it. Even Microsoft's on board with this idea of cutting bloat down, which is why they came out with Microsoft's Edge browser in Windows 10, but that's not one I'd recommend. So anyway, in this Wikipedia page, you can find a number of alternate browsers. Here you can see the K-Meleon one that I use, and the development status shown for each browser, as well as latest stable releases. I mean, something that's had a release in the last year or so, so you can see that it's actively under development and not abandoned. Operating system support. Of course, you want something here that supports Windows. And now one thing you got to keep in mind is some of these browsers are not as fully featured as like Chrome or Firefox. And so looking at what's supported in terms of JavaScript, image format, you can use these test score results to give you an idea of how the browser is going to perform. Okay, that pretty much covers everything. Hopefully, if you've done all this, by now your computer is running significantly faster. I do have a couple more tips for you here though. Whenever you go to install new software on your computer, never select the Express install option. Always select the custom option. Even if you don't understand everything, you can see what's being installed, and if there's junkware, crapware, you're set right there to immediately remove it as soon as you're done with your installation. Lastly, be aware of Microsoft themselves. They're running things in the background, collecting data from your computer, lots of telemetry. Check out my other videos on disabling the Microsoft telemetry in Windows 7, Windows 10 if you have another computer on Windows 10, because that's a whole nother video in and of itself. Alright, thanks for watching this video. I hope it was helpful. Stay tuned for the next videos in the series, which will include hardware upgrades. As far as making Windows 7 faster, that's how it's done.